Welcome back to On the Branch on the Asylum Hill. October's over, but we're still here.
October's been over for quite a while, actually.
I know. It's been.
Okay,
it feels like
that is a
October.
door.
It feels like October ended like a day ago.
For some people, it might feel that way. But
Why?
was our last recording
Right.
before Halloween or after Halloween?
It was just before
I pity
Halloween.
this floor.
And it is now after Thanksgiving.
Okay,
Yeah,
get
so
there.
considerable amount of time.
Okay, that's not bad.
So this is turned into a little bit more than just a Halloween
There
Well-
we go.
episode.
We figured as much. It's just scheduling has been a little hellish.
Yes,
Remembered how to
holidays.
Tend to do that.
Yeah. Especially, for those of us who work in retail.
Now I am
Yeah.
all
me of me now.
That I killed everything
I do not work in retail, but I used to, so I know
but
how it
has
goes.
Been a while.
You know the struggle and how
Yeah.
terrible.
And of course, something might trigger
So,
after I play the video.
in the last episode, Jamie found Alessa's super secret basement hospital room and picked up the examination room key and the videotape. And oh, look, a save point right here. How convenient. We totally could have used that instead of the director's office.
That would have been nice to remember.
But, oh well.
Whoops.
In the room, is this in the room with the videotape or the VCR? It sure is.
Yes, there it is. Okay.
Boy, that would have been convenient to have remembered last time.
Yeah, but we were starting to get on in time.
Is
Yeah.
this the video?
It was a work night.
I
Yeah,
used the
it was
creepy
getting late.
video.
I think I was still on mornings at the time. I'm now on nights, so I'm on the Jamie schedule.
Time to watch the doctor's creepy porn video.
Well,
Well, that was certainly interesting.
okay, if that didn't trigger something, then I know nothing of horror games. As a
that
precaution,
trigger
I am
something?
going to save again.
I'm shaking my head no, because the rest of you can't actually see me.
I can't see the visual gag.
Yes,
Okay.
I've got to remember that people can't see me again.
Maybe one day we'll do another face cam video that isn't Five Nights at Freddy's show off Jamie getting scared.
I'm not personally not a big fan of the face cam stuff. When I watch Let's Plays, it's usually for the purposes of trying to get a screenshot of something. So the last thing I want is somebody's ugly face in the corner.
Much less a bunch of like
Of my screenshot.
birds on the side of your of the screen. And
Yeah, although I did actually take a screenshot from one of our
well
playthroughs
below
and
par.
put it in my Evil Within 2 review.
How did that go, by the way? I haven't gotten to play it
You know,
yet.
I complained about the controls at first, the tank controls, but really, it makes sense because there are so many forced angles, and having a different kind of system would really kind of screw that up.
See, that's what I keep saying.
Yeah,
Um,
and at least it's making sense now.
yeah, well, I mean, playing a game like this, you're either going
I
to love it or
don't
you're going to
like
hate it.
that there's a change
You know,
in
it's
the
tank
music.
controls.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, Evil Within 2. I liked it. It was pretty good. I hated the first Evil Within. Like, hated it. Like, the first, 3 chapters maybe were decent, and then after that, it just goes completely off the rails, and I hated it. And mostly it just had to do with the fact that the game was very, very action-focused and not very horror-focused.
I think.
And,
So it wasn't like a strategy horror, kind of like how Silent
good.
Hill sort of.
yeah,
feels.
the first, I would not consider the first Evil Within to be survival horror, but to put that into context, I don't really consider Resident Evil 4 to be survival horror either. So, I mean, because Resident Evil 4 is a joke, right? I mean, the whole game is literally
It's
just
a parody of itself.
yeah, it's a parody of it's I'm willing to concede that Resident Evil 4 is a good game. It is a
Right.
well-designed game in its own right. I just don't like it because it's not a horror game and because I liked the older Resident Evil games.
You did like the
Nothing
horror,
unusual
the actual
except
horror.
all the
aspect.
freaking blood.
Right. I liked the Resident Evil games that
seriousness.
were actually horror games. And I didn't like the first Evil Within because the first Evil Within was like Resident Evil 4, but harder and more annoying. And like they did really like weird, stupid shit. Like they letterboxed the game.
Really?
Right? The whole game, like gameplay, is letterboxed. So a third of the screen is cropped out. And then they put bear traps and tripwires and shit on the floors and ceiling that you can't see because it's cropped out of the picture.
That sounds like a really odd place to keep tripwires up on the ceiling.
Who are you?
Well, like booby traps, like whatever.
Again, the long freaking unnatural pauses in between each sentence.
I mean, that sounds like something that a dungeon master would do to a D&D group.
What, crop out their
Twilight
field
Zone,
of vision?
bitch.
I don't
No, put a tripwire up on the ceiling just to fuck with people.
Oh, yeah.
Just let they wonder what it is, and then they trip it, and then it triggers a trap. And you're like, well, did you honestly wonder?
You don't know anything
Right.
either.
So yeah, I hated the first Evil Within game. And then like a lot of people criticized it for having a bad story or a story that didn't make sense. The story was fine, and it made sense. The problem was that it just wasn't very well presented. The game was very scattershot. Like, it didn't even start to really tell its story until like 2/3 the way through the game. And it just keeps jumping back and forth from like place to place for like no apparent reason until, like finally in like chapter 10 or something, they explain what's going on and suddenly all the jumping around makes sense. But it was this thing where like you'd have this like puzzle shooter objective, right? And you have to clear all the bad guys and get this objective. But what would happen is when you would complete the puzzle sequence, instead of actually getting to the place that was your objective, like the game would literally just pick you up and throw you to another random place in the map.
Well, okay then.
So you never felt like you were actually making any progress because
You're just being moved to the next point.
because the rug was just always being pulled out from under you. And because that game was so focused on being like this action heavy, shooter game, and because it was so, and because it was very challenging, it was very demanding. You had to be very accurate with your shots. You had to be very deliberate in the resources that you used and all that. So the game brutally punishes little mistakes. And
Was I dreaming?
so this feeling of never making progress just gets annoying. But in the context of like an actual horror game, like that sort of thing could actually be very successful, right? Because it creates this constant sense of uncertainty. And the Silent Hill games...
I needed a reminder. I didn't remember your name.
And the Silent Hill games do this with the other world. The other world creates an uncertainty about where you are, and what's going on, right? Like you open up the map and it's the same map, but all of the things that you've drawn on the map are just gone, right? So there's a little bit of confusion and uncertainty about what's going on.
Because I'm a religious fanatic.
And the Evil Within 2, on the one hand, has a much more straightforward plot. It is much easier to
Though
follow.
I probably drugged you.
But it's also more of a horror game than the first one was. It's still not really horror. I mean, it's not scary. But it falls more into the survival horror camp, in my opinion, than the first one did. And I was actually a little disappointed that they didn't have some of that whimsical, pulling the rug out from underneath you stuff that the first game had, because that would have felt more appropriate in a horror game that's actually trying to scare you, as opposed to an action game that's just a bunch of puzzle set pieces, and shooter set pieces and boss fights. So yeah, I do like the Evil Within 2 a lot more than I like the first Evil Within.
Jamie's asking a question.
Oh, is this a for real question from Jamie? What was it?
Why does it even ask you when you're picking stuff up?
Oh, yeah. There's no reason at all for this game to do that, because there's never any reason to not pick something up. My best guess is that the reason that that's in the game is because Silent Hill was originally conceived as a reaction to the first Resident Evil game, right? Like Konami literally said, hey, people love this Resident Evil thing.
Let's make our own
we
version.
want you guys to make a Resident Evil game. But then like a bunch of drama at the company happened and like they lost faith in the project. And Konami like basically just said, screw it, whatever, make whatever the hell you guys want. We don't really care anymore. It's probably going to fail anyway, right? So there's a lot of things in the first Silent Hill game in particular that are that do really feel reminiscent of the first few Resident Evil games. And I would imagine that at one point in development, I don't know if this is true, this is just speculation on my part, but I would guess that at one point in development, they were planning on having a limited inventory system, just like the first Resident Evil have. So,
if not at least for like health pickups and stuff like that, like you could only carry so many health things.
Right, so asking you whether or not you want to pick something up would actually be important because you might run out of space if you pick up too many things and then not be able to pick up, a critical health pack or a critical set of ammunition or, heaven forbid, a key item.
With or without the option to drop things, maybe, who knows?
Yeah, which is one of my consistent complaints with the older Resident Evil games, and one of the few things that I was actually really disappointed that the HD remaster of the GameCube remake did not fix. They did not give you better inventory management options. And I feel that was a huge missed opportunity, because you can't do things like, if your inventory's full, and you have a green herb in your inventory,
don't like that sound.
and you find a red herb, right? You can't just combine them in your hand.
Oh,
so
you can't.
Because it has to go into your inventory for you to combine it. But it's like, I've already got the green herb that I want to mix it with. I can't do that.
It couldn't handle having like a temporary inventory slot to make the new item.
Right, or it couldn't just prompt you, your inventory is full. Would you like to combine this with another item? And then just give you bring up the inventory screen and let you select an item to combine it with. Like, they could have done something like that. And then there's stuff like, if I don't have a healing item in my inventory, but my inventory is full of like weapons and ammunition and key items, and I'm actually low on health, and I come across a healing item, you can't pick it up. Like, you can't even if you wanted to just permanently drop a set of handgun bullets, you can't even do that, let alone like just temporarily put down a friggin' key and pick it back up off the ground after you eat the healing item. So,
does that be convenient?
Right. So there's a lot of things like that I feel that the HD remaster probably could have done that would have been nice, that they didn't do.
Probably the first car I have seen.
But yeah, so that is my guess as to why this game has that prompt of whether or not you want to pick something up, and it also does kind of fit into that same theme of the other world of creating uncertainty in the player. Right,
because
like,
what if something were to change based on just you picking something up?
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Well, and not even that, but like, I mean, just asking yourself, why would I ever not want to pick this up? Right, like, makes you think. Right, it lets your.
Is there a case where I wouldn't want this?
Well, it starts the imagination running. Right, like, is there a reason I wouldn't? Like, is that, is not picking up this box of bullets somehow a good idea?
Right.
I don't think the developers were intending. I don't think that was developer intent. I think it's more of like a happy accident.
Yeah.
And once you do figure out that there is no reason to not pick stuff up, then that just completely goes out the window. But
Jamie, you may want to nitpick the map a little bit because you have the key to the antique shop. So maybe look around on the map. Like,
I can't.
Can you zoom in on the map at all?
Nope.
Yeah, I think you can. The X button?
Literally.
X button.
X.
And now move around. Not that helps because the text isn't in any higher resolution. But I can tell you where you need to go. It's in the top right corner of the map. Northeast corner.
That's as far as it goes.
Yeah, that's it. It says...
Antique shop.
Yep. You can barely read it. Antique.
It also says green on there, and the key was green.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird that it's like one...
Just to make sure.
Most of the buildings that you can go into on the map are red, and that's usually how you can tell. But for some reason, the building that you're supposed to go into now is not. So I imagine this part of the game probably throws off a lot of first-time players.
Probably.
Because for one thing, it breaks with the game's established conventions. Mm-hmm. If you notice that at this point, you might not have even noticed that the.
I think I started to notice it.
I think I might have pointed it out in one of the previous episodes, but yeah. Evil Within 2, pretty good.
Not amazing.
Not amazing. I wrote a review. I gave it like a B or something like that.
Not bad. It's at least passing.
Right. Resident Evil 7, Biohazard is better, way better, and the Resident Evil remake is also much better.
What the fuck is with that sound?
But Evil Within 2 is better than the first Evil Within, and it's way better than, like, say, for example, Silent Hill Downpour, which was just friggin' terrible. What's interesting is
sound.
Evil Within 2 had a lot of things in it that seemed to be clearly inspired by Silent Hill. Even though the Evil Within franchise was created by Shinji Mikami, which is the mastermind behind Resident Evil and Resident Evil 4. But like Evil Within 2 seems like it's more trying to be like Silent Hill than trying to be like Resident Evil. It's not actually like Silent Hill. I don't want people to take this the wrong way. The Evil Within 2 does not feel like a Silent Hill game.
It looks like it's like looking at Silent Hill in the mirror and it's like, okay, well, maybe peel some elements off of it.
Well, yeah, maybe, but not even that. Just more like I said, like it has things that seem clearly inspired. So by Silent Hill. So one of the things that it has is there's the setup is that you're in this simulated city, right? It's in like a computer simulation, like not really a virtual reality thing, but it's like more like the Matrix kind of thing. But the city is literally falling apart at the seams. So there's like places that are blocked off, like whole neighborhoods are like ripped apart from each other and like are floating in the sky and stuff like that. So you're walking around and like roads just end and there's big gaping bottomless pits in the ground. And it looks like something pulled right out of Silent Hill. Right, and then they've got, there's like cultish elements in the game, and there's even a joke. Early in the game, you can pick up a steel pipe. It's a piece of scrap. It's a piece of scrap for the game's crafting system, and the message, the little item description, the flavor text is something along the lines of, like maybe you could use this as a cudgel, but it's mostly useless because besides you've got guns anyway. And it seems clearly to be poking fun at Silent Hill, where like one of the friggin' steel pipe is like the best weapon in the game. Like other than maybe like the hand axe in the first Silent Hill and in Silent Hill 4. But yeah, Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 3, like the steel pipe is like boss. You can get through the whole game with the steel pipe.
Because you have unlimited ammunition and it never dents.
It's true. The steel pipe does include unlimited ammunition. When you're using the steel pipe, you have a Solid Snake infinite ammo bandana.
You just keep alternating which side you're hitting someone with, so that way it never bends. That's how it's infinite ammo. Because eventually, you would figure it would have to break, right?
If this were a game made in the last 5 years, then yeah, it would have to break sooner or later. But this is a game made before.
Is this just a safety hidey hole?
No, she's missing the.
What am I doing?
The clue on the wall. She's supposed to push the bookshelf. There's a hole in the wall that she's supposed to go through, and then Harry's going to get really sexist for a brief moment. It's the one time in the game that I feel like that I don't really like Harry. Is he's gonna
when he turns into an old person?
He's gonna say something to Sybil that can be interpreted as being sexist. It's probably more of just like a lost in translation kind of thing.
I see it. And
I want to turn this light on, but why can't I? Can I sit on the couch?
So
no.
Okay, so the camera angle here is very deliberate. It's supposed to be drawing your attention to the wall. It took a while for Jamie to find it, but she did eventually find it. So what's going to happen here is Sybil's going to come in, and even though Sybil is a trained police officer with a gun,
it's a hole, Harry.
And maybe even a bulletproof vest, but probably not because that's a pretty tight shirt she's wearing.
Sybil?
Harry's gonna be like, no, you wait here, I'm gonna go.
I got this.
And it kind of comes off as, because I'm the man.
Yeah.
But, like I said, I think it's probably more of a lost in translation kind of thing. I think the point is more that finding his daughter is his quest. Mm-hmm. So he feels like it's his responsibility to face the danger.
They didn't emphasize why he wanted to go first better.
Right. So the actual and then on top of all that is that the fact that the voice acting in the game is not all that great.
Read this line.
Yeah. So yeah, it comes off as a little chauvinistic.
Mm-hmm. I went after her, but she vanished. I don't know about your daughter, but
Cheryl. World hide and seek.
At least it does to me.
Circa this game.
He was channeling his inner Al Bundy.
Yeah, well.
She was heading towards the lake.
Except Al Bundy would have just plopped on the couch and watch the game.
It wasn't like she ran off exactly. There was no place for her to go. The road has been obliterated.
God, her face looks really bad right now.
Yeah, well, again, watching this on a larger TV in HD, the game really does not hold up well visually.
Well, this isn't. I wouldn't really say that this is HD. This is just upscaled and.
Well, right, but I mean, it's an HD TV, right? And this is the game that was meant to be played on, a old school CRT television with, this. Maybe going to be 25 inches in diameter,
At biggest.
Or not diameter, but diagonal. Yeah, if you have a round TV, that would be something.
That'd be interesting.
Any idea what it means?
Spherical TV?
And in fact, I've read. I'm not super into this sort of technical mechanical
Seriously,
stuff.
Folks, seriously. You have witnessed monsters.
Supposedly,
the freaking cars and vehicles aren't running. There are roads literally obliterated, and you're questioning whether or not this woman who said the town is being devoured by darkness is on drugs?
I really don't know. But maybe
drugs would do that.
But the real question is, are we on drugs?
That's all I can think of.
Because that actually has been a fan hypothesis since the game came out. So if you go on to really old GameFAQs forums,
that you're some sort of
that you're on drugs, you're hallucinating everything, and that the monsters that you're killing are actually just the residents of the town, and you are basically a serial killer who doesn't know you're a serial killer.
But is that taken from the perspective of Harry or
no?
So when we were in the police station,
don't let the trained professional,
Are you from here? Be careful. If anything looks fishy, get back.
What was I about to say?
Okay.
I think we just had the sexist line that I was talking about. But we were in the police station. I think earlier, right?
Yes.
Did she go into the police station before?
She poked in.
Yeah. Well, she just went in a few minutes ago, but I mean, in one of the previous play sessions, I think she went in and she actually read the board and stuff like that was talking about the White Claudia. So there's a drug smuggling ring, and that's part of the background storyline of the game. So some fans speculated early on that the fog in the game is not fog, that it's just that fields of these hallucinogenic flowers are on fire. And the fog in the game is the smoke from burning hallucinogenic flowers, making everybody that comes into the town hallucinate.
And go crazy.
And, think they're seeing monsters when in fact it's just people and animals and stuff like that. And
this is so casual of conversation.
not to sound rude to people who might believe that, but that's preposterous.
It's kind of silly.
This is a game that is about
like a guy
literal cults summoning literal demons.
Mm-hmm.
That is the literal text of the game.
The floor is made of bones.
It's not made of bones. It just has bones.
Or it's a bone pattern or something like that. I'm not hearing crunching, so it's more like a bone pattern.
And I think we mentioned before the parallel dimension idea
The dark,
as well.
Yeah.
That the
Really,
other
you have
world
to
is
press
in
the
a parallel
button to go
dimension.
through the
And this is one of the scenes that is often referenced as evidence for that.
Why is
Because what's about to happen
Let's
is...
see. Hold on. Let's just watch.
Some
Okay,
kind of
sure.
altar. Never seen anything like this before. Maybe this is the other church.
The other church.
Yeah, you have, dude. You saw the body.
What is
at
that
the school.
picture of?
That's
It
one of the
was found in
charms
the
of
same
the
position.
first Silent Hill game is asking, what the hell is that? It happens all the
Some
time.
kind of powder. It's cocaine.
No, it's probably
cocaine.
the White
I'm
Claudia.
calling it now. That's what the powder is. It's cocaine.
Close enough. Again, Jamie
I mean, it
supposedly
looks like
can't hear us, but...
It looks like someone doing a handstand and then splitting their legs, but
Can I wonder
Yeah,
if I can
or
use-
it's probably
can
a
I
picture
use
of a demon.
lighter here?
Anyway, what's about to
Watch
happen
it,
as
okay,
she tries to leave the room is you're going to enter the other world. And when we go out, Sybil's going to be gone.
of course.
And when you meet up with her later, I think she's just going to say something about how you like disappeared or something like that. And people use that as evidence that Harry traveled into another dimension.
Like
He
he's
left
flipping between
he
worlds.
left this dimension
Okay,
and
what's
entered
this?
another dimension. But
Yeah, I'll take the axe. Let me ask you a
one of the
question.
things that
Hey, what's this
is,
writing on the wall? Can I,
that kind of messes with
can
that
I not read it?
is that when he leaves, I think there's, if I remember, I don't remember if it happens here. I think it happens here at this point in the game. There's going to be a brief sequence where he kind of
It's
has,
very frustrating.
he gets like teleported back to the hospital and has a conversation with the nurse Lisa that we just talked to. Except there's going to be like a sepia, like old school film grain filter applied over that entire
I didn't go
sequence.
through this
So like it's a
before.
memory. But
That makes it, yeah, that gives it this dream-like appearance and, you know, dream-like or yeah, like a memory. And so
Can I use this?
But that effect is never applied when we're just in the other world, right?
right.
The implication being, to me anyway, is that
Ooh.
he's not being pulled into another dimension. He's literally being pulled out of reality and
What the?
into like a dream world.
But whose dream?
it was
Alessa's,
cooking,
Lisa's, you know, somebody's. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, he's not going into another dimension. He's literally, because the game's plot is about, you know, a psychic girl and, you know, a demon that are able to basically project dreams and nightmares onto reality, right? So dreams and reality are transmutable in this universe.
Oh man, got my hopes up for a second.
So to me, this scene that's about to play right now is Harry literally being pulled out of reality and being put in a dream. So you can see how it's like kind of fuzzy
Oh
and
yeah.
right. I mean, the whole game, right, because it's an old game, looks fuzzy, but you can
This
clearly
looks
see
especially fuzzy.
you can clearly see the difference in the presentation here. There's an echoey quality to the voices. You know, that everything looks fuzzy. There's like a brownish, you know, filter over everything.
Looks like kind of reddish.
Yeah, brownish reddish filter over everything. The overworld or the other world as a whole does not look or sound like this.
No.
Do you know a woman named Dahlia Gillespie?
No, I don't. Why?
So, you know, my conclusion is that Harry's being pulled out of reality into a dream and then put back into reality after reality has been transmuted into the other world. Because the whole plot of the game is that this cult wants to birth this demon god, and the purpose behind that is that this god is supposed to reshape the world into paradise,
The darkness.
right?
Paradise.
Eden. So this cult believes. So,
You know,
like,
cool.
that
You know,
only
it's not-
works
not
if the
smart,
god has the
but
power to
I think
reshape
it'd be
reality,
cool if
like
this game
literally
had
reshape
this
our
world.
reality.
Like the darkness that you fight in Eternal Darkness is the same that's affecting the town in Silent Hill.
Probably not, Jamie.
That's I've never heard anyone try to link those two games together in that way before, and it's been a long time since I've played Eternal Darkness, so I don't.
I can't personally see a link.
Was that did we do that on the branch?
Jamie played that with Enoch.
Okay, no, I played that with a different friend. That's right. I did play Eternal Darkness. I did not have a GameCube when I was growing up, so I didn't get to play it when it was actually out. But I did a few years ago get to.
I'm sure Jamie would be willing to loan you her copy if you.
Oh no, I've played it. It's fine. It's good.
Yes, but have you played it 17 times? You've done like the super secret ending.
I haven't even played Silent Hill 17 times. I've only like 4 or 5.
Several people connected with developing the town died in accidents. I'm sorry. I'm rambling.
I mean, I can kind of see like what you mean with it being plucked out of one reality and put into it after it's reshaped.
This is what I want to hear about. I need to hear about this shit.
Well, in the later games, we actually see that transformation happen in real time. And even the later games after Silent Hill 4, the ones that were developed by other studios, the ones that are outsourced to other studios, like if you saw the Silent Hill movie, you're familiar with the peeling effect, right? Yeah. Like the walls just like dissolve, right? And everything just kind of floats up into the air and disappears. That same effect.
Said Sheldon was heading towards the lake.
That same effect is used in the games after Silent Hill 4. I don't consider those games to be canon because they're terrible. But the people who made those games seemed to think that, the reality was being transformed.
Okay, there's one symbol. Where the hell am I?
But there's a lot of fans of these games that are just like, oh no, it's parallel dimensions, and if you don't think it's parallel dimensions, then
you're wrong.
Well, not just wrong, but that you're like stupid. And
you're stupid for not knowing that's wrong.
I'm not going to tell anyone that they're stupid because they think that the games take place
because they
in
hold
different
some sort of opinion.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can think whatever you want. There are definitely ideas that are more wrong and more right than others. But these games are a work of art.
People are allowed to their
art is subjective.
Okay,
right. Everyone's going to have their own interpretation, their own reading of the content. And, there are going to be, some things that are just flat out wrong because they disagree with the actual text of the game.
Of what happens.
Okay. Now we're in the darkness.
If someone wanted to tell me that Harry is the 7-year-old girl running around the game, I'm going to be like, yeah, no, probably not.
Probably not.
I think you are objectively wrong. But, things like whether or not there's a parallel dimension or,
anything that's speculative.
Whether or not Sybil is supposed to survive the conclusion of the game or, things like that. Like, that's going to be up to the individual player. But I do firmly believe, and I think the games support, that there is one singular reality that is being reshaped by, the power of the town as channeled through this cult's demon god.
Right.
Oh shit! Fucking get off me, man!
Does Sybil make an appearance in any of the other games?
Get off me, motherfucker!
No, she's not referenced at all until a possible reference in Silent Hill Homecoming, which, as I said before, I don't really consider to be canon to begin with.
Right.
But anyway, there's a line of dialogue in Silent Hill Homecoming in which another police officer, the main character and his friend and another police officer are going to Silent Hill to try to figure out what the hell's going on in their town, because similar shit's happening in another town now. And the police officer says, "Oh, I heard about another cop who went to Silent Hill once, and she never came back." Something like that. They found her motorbike outside of town. So clearly he's referencing Sybil, but he doesn't.
Not
few things.
Directly. He might not be.
Well, it is clearly an allusion to Sybil. The motorcycle, female woman police officer. There, he's talking about Sybil. But
go back to the hospital.
He doesn't say that she's dead. that she died. He just says she went
never
missing.
returned.
Right? She never. I don't remember the exact line of dialogue, but I think it's something along the lines of like just she disappeared, she never came back, something like that. He never
heard from her again.
Yeah. So he doesn't say that she died, and even if he does, Silent Hill Homecoming has like 4 or 5 different endings of the game, and in more than half of those endings, everything that happened in the game was either a dream or a hallucination.
So it didn't really happen anyway.
Right. So is he even a credible source of information to begin with? And even if you want to accept that he's a credible source of information, I don't consider the game canon. Exactly. So, but of course, again, that's me not considering the game canon doesn't mean that you can't consider the game canon.
Exactly.
Like there are people who like Silent Hill Homecoming, and in fact, in retrospect, there are things that Silent Hill Homecoming did that are far superior to anything that Silent Hill Downpour did, which I didn't think was possible, because when Silent Hill Homecoming came out, oh my goodness, I hated it. I did not think a Silent Hill game could get worse. And Silent Hill Downpour, I think, is an overall better game, but I think it's a worse Silent Hill game.
Storytelling, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jamie seems to be slightly lost, and I think we can, next time on the branch, and then get her pointed to where she needs to go.
Sure.
Sounds good.
Town center? Next time on the branch?
Yeah, you did it.